Hi friends, Tiffany here. Welcome to my quilting life. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through how to make charmed geese. Exactly what it sounds like. Charms geese. So let's find out how much yardage we need and get started. So for today's charmed geese, which should be about 48 by 57, you need one charm pack. I'm using Crescendo. I think it's by Contempo for Benertex fabrics. I don't know. That's what's in it. Obviously, you'll see when I open it up and start putting them together. So one charm pack, that's 42 5-inch squares, 1.5 yards of your accent color. And then you need 2.5 yards for your geese. Now, I don't have 2.5 yards of just one color, so I am going with 2.5 yards worth of orange fat quarters, or white with orange on them. Now 10 fat quarters is 2.5 yards, but I grabbed 11. That way I can have 2 geese of each color, due to the fact that you need 21 geese and you would only get 10 the other way. So I want, for my personal makings here, 2 from each color here in the orange. There is going to be waste, but that is okay. The waste can go in my scrap pile and I will use it all up. So we're going to go ahead and take our one charm pack of 42 pieces, 1.5 yards of your accent, and 11 fat quarters, or just 2.5 yards of one color. And you'll see in the pattern when I show you at the end of this video or somewhere during this video, I will show you what this looks like in different colorways so you can get a general idea of how you want to make yours. So I'm going to go ahead now and press these fat quarters, because now I have a lot of extra work to do since I'm not using continuous yardage. I'm going to go ahead and press these, and then we'll get started with our charms, and then we'll work on our flying geese and our half square triangles that are going to be made from all of this. Okay, so here on the screen, you are going to see the directions if you are cutting your geese color from the yardage that I gave you of 2.5 yards. I'm going to explain it because this I have to cut differently. From your geese color, you're going to cut 2 9 1/2 inch strips. You're going to turn them and subcut them into 6 9.5 inch squares. Then you're going to go ahead and cut 3 8.5 inch strips off of your yardage. And then you're going to turn it and subcut 21 4.5 by 8.5 inch rectangles. Then you're going to cut off your yardage 3 5-inch strips, and you're going to subcut those 3 5-inch strips. You're going to turn them, cut them into 21 5 by 5-inch squares. I'm going to go ahead and do mine from fat quarters, and then I realized that this one wasn't even a fat quarter. So now I have to go ahead and improvise here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut from here. I'm going to make a nice straight cut to start on one of the sides. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and cut this selvage off first, because, you know, that's always in the way. Just line this up. I'm going to cut all these, all 11 at the same time, hopefully. All right, I'm going to cut all the selvage off at once. Now I'm going to go ahead and line this up and cut the whole entire side nice and straight. I'm going to make sure I'm getting all the layers. All right, I'm going to line this up on a line, and I'm going to come over 9.5 inches. So this ruler is 8.5, so I just need to come over 9.5. I can see the lines on my cutting mat. Let's go right here. We're going to line that half mark up there and this half mark there. And if it's not perfect, well, I don't know what to say. All right, so I'm going to cut one 9.5-inch strip. I'm going to set that aside without moving or adjusting anything. I'm going to turn this. I'm going to line it up on a line and cut one 9.5-inch square from each of these. Because this is from the fat quarters and we're making it work. There's one 9.5-inch square from each. Now I'm going to go ahead and just turn this and turn this into 8.5 now. I'm just going to recut off this 1-inch strip from the end. These are just going to go in my scrap bin. Now I need two 4.5-inch pieces from each. So let's line this up on 4 1/2. Oh, I'm hoping that makes it because I would really like two from each. 4.5 by 8.5. And can we do it again? Oh yeah, look at that. Sometimes it works out for the good. All right, this right here is just going to go now in my scraps. All right, that's two 4.5 by 8.5 from each of these fat quarters, and then one 9.5-inch square from each of the fat quarters. Now I'm going to go ahead and move this strip back in front of me again. Just slide that out of the way. Line it up. And we're going to cut a 5-inch strip from every single one of these. Just one 5-inch strip. I told you there's going to be slight waste, and that is because we're going to have that much on the side. Oh, missed one. All right. So for me, this is not really waste. I'm going to still use it, but for something else. I'm going to just set that aside. I'm going to turn this. And since I always pre-cut 5-inch squares anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and cut 4 5-inch squares from each. This one is not going to make it, but I'm hoping that that will be enough. And then I will be able to just use anything left over for another project. So I'm one shy in this pile, but that's okay because we're going to get two half square triangles per anyway. We only need 42 half square triangles for this project. So we're going to get 2 at a time from these. So that's plenty. And anything left over will just go on my scrap pile. All right, that is all cut up. Now let's cut our yardage. 1.5 yards of my accent. I'm going to go ahead now and chop this up. I'm going to straighten one side. You're going to cut 6 5 1/8 inch strips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/8. 5 1/8. I'm going to subcut these. We're going to turn it and we're going to cut out 48 5 1/8 inch squares. So you're going to get 48 5 1/8 inch squares from your 6 5 1/8 inch strips. Oops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1/8 right there. 2, 3, and number 4. So there is my 48 5 1/8 inch squares. All right, I'm going to pull this back over and I'm going to cut 3 5-inch strips. Just going to switch rulers because the other one is so bulky for these smaller pieces, but the smaller ruler I keep here doesn't have all those numbers on it. All right, so 3 5-inch strips. 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to go ahead now. We're going to turn and subcut. Oh, by the way, this is like frogs and Calypso frogs something or other. Paintbrush Studio. I don't know exactly. I probably should have told you because you guys like to know what I'm using. Probably not even available anyway though. You know, because I use a lot of gifted to me or bought it from a thrift store, yard sale, estate sale, or gifted to me. And sometimes they're older fabrics. All right, so I'm going to subcut now into 21 5-inch squares. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this whole thing instead of separating out 21 because, I mean, really, I'm going to go ahead and bypass this fold because I did not press my fabric. And any leftovers go into my 5-inch square bin, so that's okay. All right, so there are my 5-inch squares. Now don't confuse these with your 5 1/8 inch squares. So what I'm going to do is my 5-inch squares of my orange or my geese color, I'm going to put with my charms like this. And then the 5 1/8 ones are going to go with the 9.5 inch squares. All right, last thing is the lovely, wonderful charm pack. So I'm going to open up this charm pack. I'm just going to leave it exactly how it is. It was nice and tight in there. Just going to take up, I don't know, about enough to cut and make piles. That looks a good enough pile. That looks like a good enough pile. Good enough pile. That way I'm not cutting too many layers at once. All right, I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to subcut these charm squares into mini charms, pretty much. We're going to turn them into 2.5 inch squares. Let me make sure. All right, it's from the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and measure from the inside of my mountain, 2.5 inches. I'm going to restack that back up. Oh, that's why it was hard to cut. It had the cardboard. Whew, I'm a dum-dum. Hey, but it cut through it. All right, and then I'm going to turn it and again cut 2.5 inch squares. So this whole entire thing will be turned into 2.5 inch squares. So I'm just going to go ahead and chop all this up into squares. We could sew it the other way, but I want more combinations of color. So that is why I'm pre-chopping them instead of doing the sewing method with them. But that's just because I want more combos of color. All right, now everything is lovely and chopped up. So now what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go to the machine and I'm gonna make 4 patches. Quite simple, but I'm going to mix and match, so I'm not gonna keep everything in this order. I'm gonna go ahead and make 42. That's 42. You came with 42 pieces, so you're sewing this whole entire amount back up. We just chopped them up, but we're gonna sew them up into 4 patches. So I'm gonna go ahead now and just start making combos and sewing 4 patches until all of this is sewn up. Let's go to the machine. Here we are at the machine. We're going to go ahead now and just start picking up pieces. And I like to sew them through. So when I'm using charm squares, it had a pinked edge around it. See? I'm going to sew the cut sides together. That way I have my true 1/4 of an inch and I don't have to worry about measuring in on the edges. So I'm going to sew 2. And I'm going to grab 2 more and sew them through all the way until I have all 42 sewn up. So I'm going to go ahead and spare you the fully sewing of this. I'm not even going to bother putting it in fast forward. I'm just going to spare you this. And when I am finished sewing these all through and through, I'm going to cut them apart in sets of 2. So every two will be going together. Now that they are all sewn in sets of 2, what I do is these 2, the pinked edge runs on the outside from the top piece, and then it runs on the bottom and left on the right piece once they're sewn through. So that means everything that I was cutting, all the cut edges will be inside the block. That way I have more of a square piece, if that makes any sense. So every 2, I made sure that everything is super mixed up. Every 2 is going to be put together to create the 4 patch. And I'm just going to, without even going to the iron, I'm just going to make the 4 patch here and then press in the end. So I'm just separating them. I should get a total of 42 because there was 42 5-inch squares to start. I should have a total of 42 4 patches when all is said and done. So I'm just going to do this. Just making a nice big pile next to me because they stay hooked together. And this is what our goal is right here. I made sure that if I clipped down enough that you can see the 4 patch. So I did 2 of them, and I'm just going to press at the end when I am done sewing them all together. So here's another 4 patch. So you can see the pinking is all the way around on the outside. That way I didn't have to worry about trying to line up and then getting an even screwed up more idea on my 1/4 inch seam. So I just left it on the outside, and we should have 4.5 inch 4 patches. There's the seam nested up. One is just going one way, one is going the other. And I'll do that from right here at my sit-downness. My sit-downness, is that a word? Oop, these two are tangled. Oh no. Right there, come on. Okay. And a separate. So I literally am just going to press one to the right, one to the left, just with my fingers for now. I'm going to nest that seam. It locks into place. I do have a video that shows you how to put just plain squares together and nest your seam and get a perfect 1/4 inch seam every single time. I will link that in the description below this video so that you could find that if you need a refresher on all those steps. But see, now we're combining those 4 patches or solid squares with the half square triangles that I made a video of for you guys, as well as we are now learning and adding flying geese units, which we will get to eventually, but I wanted to get these 4 patches done first, only making 42, so it should go pretty quick. Oops, that one kind of, there we go, right there. So I'm going to go ahead now and spare you this part again instead of putting it in fast forward. You pretty much get the picture. When I am done doing this, I will press every single one of these nice and flat, and they should be 4.5 inches. All right, so I'll see you. Well, actually, I won't see you in a second because for you it'll be a second. For me, it'd be like probably 20 minutes. 4 patches are done. So you can see I have quite the variety of 4 patches. So I'm going to go ahead. I should have 42 of these because there was 42 charm squares. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set these aside until we make our blocks. And now I'm going to grab our 5-inch squares of accent and our 5-inch squares of my orange or my flying geese color, which is for me oranges, all the orange ones. Now I'm going to go ahead and put these together. So each of my stacks here had 11 in them because I cut them at the same exact time, except for one stack because remember I was short. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to be making 42. So 21 of these. So there's 11 and 11. Oops. Yeah, 11 and 10 for me. And then I'm going to set these aside because I don't need them. They're just 5-inch squares for later. But I cut the whole thing up because I wanted to. Then I'm going to take this stack right here of my accent color. Again, I need 21, and I am going to turn these into half square triangles. So I need 21 of these and 21 of these. We're going to put it right sides together. We're going to draw a line from corner to corner. And then we're going to sew on both sides of that drawn line. Now, I do have a video on making half square triangles. I will link it in the description below because I'm not going to go into full detail. I'm going to just use my seam tape. But again, draw your line from corner to corner, sew on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and use my seam tape because it's easier for me to line up. So if you want to check out the half square triangle video, have fun and then come back and do this. So I'm going to go ahead now and make 21 of these, and then we're going to split them in half, cut them in half, and get 2 half square triangles per so that we can have 42 half square triangles because we need 42 half square triangles. So I'm going to go ahead and go sew all of this up. Here we are at the machine. Again, I'm just going to sew using my seam tape. Line my pieces up on top of each other exactly on top of each other as best as possible. I'm going to line the point up of this piece of fabric with the side of my foot on this side, and then the bottom point is going to get lined up with the black line on my seam tape. So I'm going to go ahead and sew up one side, and I'm going to chain piece them through, and then I'm going to turn, keeping everything connected, I'm going to turn the whole entire pile around and sew down the opposite side like this. So we're just making a simple half square triangle. We're getting 2 at a time half square triangles. Again, if you need a video on how to do these properly, more into detail, then go ahead and check out the video linked in the description below. So I'm going to go ahead and take that first one off because that one is done and I don't need to sew it again. And then I'm going to snip it in half. I'm going to cut the whole thing in half and reveal myself 2 half square triangles. And then we'll trim them all to 4.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and just sew all these through. One of these, one of those, and just keep going until my whole stack is through. And then we will move on to the next step after this. So again, I'm going to just spare you this repetitive sewing. I showed you that I'm going to turn the whole stack around and sew them. So I'm going to go ahead now and just continue on sewing all of these. One side, turn the whole thing, sew the other side, and then we will work on other stuff. Okay, they're all sewn up, so now I'm just going to split them all in half and then trim them using my trimmer to 4.5 inches. So I'm just using my Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer, lining up their stitch line on my stitch line. Again, the video is in the description below if you need further instructions, and close-up of cutting your half square triangles. And then I'm going to trim off the dog ears right now. That way they are done before I get to the iron. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all this up, and then we will move on to the flying geese because that's the next step. And here are my half square triangles. Now I did put them in their color grouping, so all that piece is there. There should be 4 of each except for one set. So all of my half square triangles, except for this set, all have 4 of the same color in them. So there is my half square triangles. Now I'm keeping them in their same color because they're going to correspond with their flying geese unit. So I'm going to go ahead now and just restack these so that you can see. And then we are going to move on to the lovely, fun to do flying geese units. And that block will bring all this stuff together. So I'm going to go ahead now and we're going to take our 5 1/8 inch accent squares and our 9.5 inch of our orange color. Now there should be, I don't even know how many pieces here, 11 I think. There should be 11 of these. We're going to go ahead and take one of these and we're going to actually draw a line this time from corner to corner, and we're going to set this with its wonderful drawn line. I'm going to go ahead and just draw the line because why not, and just get it done while we're right here on the video. We're going to be making 4 at a time flying geese. Now we're only going to be using 2 of them, so the other 2 are going to go for my extra project that I will make from all my leftovers. So here's line. It's going to go in one corner like this. Got my line drawn, and I'm going to draw a second one with another line, and I'm going to make my pieces go in the same direction. So I'm drawing my corner to corner line so that I could visibly see it, and I'm going to make these go in the same direction. So you can see the back side of my fabric here. My dots are going in the same direction. Then after I draw those lines, I'm going to go ahead and throw 2 pins in here, or more than 2, however you want to do it, because I want to keep all of my pieces together. That way I can just go to the machine and sew. So I'm going to prep by taking all of these pieces and pre-pinning them on here, and then we're going to be sewing on both sides of that drawn line. So I'm going to go ahead now. It's all flat. I'm going to make a whole entire stack of all of these. So I'm going to just take one of these, and then another one of these, and I'm going to draw the lines in that same direction because mine is a directional fabric. If it wasn't directional and your accent was just a different fabric, then go ahead and obviously lay it on there with your drawn line. But mine are a directional fabric, so I'm going to try to keep them all in that same direction. So I'm going to line it up. My lines that I drew are touching. I'm going to go ahead and just throw 4 pins in here, and then I'll stack it on my stack. And then once I have the whole stack ready, I'll draw lines on the back side of the other ones, the leftovers, and get those prepared for this. So I'm going to go ahead, making sure that I'm laying these in the same direction. You need 4 squares per your 11 blocks. So 4 squares per each of your 11 10 or 9.5-inch squares. So my line is touching. I'm just going to go ahead, throw some pins. You notice I'm doing something that I don't never really ever do. Normally I would lay this on here, but because these are bigger than my normal sewing and they go beyond my seam tape, I kind of can't tell. So I want to make sure they stay nice. So I'm just prepping everything. I probably should have pre-pressed all this fabric too, because some of these edges are folding up, making it feel like I'm doing something wrong. I'm really not. It just feels like it because they're bending funny. Here, and here. And my pins are not in the way of where I'm going to be stitching. And then when I do stitch, I'm going to have the piece that comes over first, over the top, be the one I start with. That way I'm not accidentally catching the lip and folding it back. So the one that folds over to the top will be the one that I'm sewing. The way I'm sewing, I should say. All right, I'm going to spare you the rest of this. I'm going to draw these on here, and then we're going to go over to the machine. Here we are at the machine. We're going to go ahead and grab one at a time. So you can see I have my lip hanging over the top of this side, and I'm going to sew down one side, passing that and sewing down the rest of it. So I'm going to go ahead. My foot is lined up with the edge of that line. So see, I'm coming up on that next piece. Make sure it's flat under there. Staying on the side of the line. And then turn it around and sew the other side of the line. And we're going to make sure that this stays down. This method is going to give us 4 at a time flying geese. We only need 2 of each, but we're just going to make 4. So I'm going to go ahead and set this one aside and move on to the next. Since I pinned everything, it's all staying nicely in place. So all I have to do is pick up and sew. Grab the next, and I'll pull all the pins out when I'm done. You're only doing this 9 times. 11 times, sorry. Making sure every single time that this doesn't get flipped up. So I just hold it till the needle comes to it. Another. And another. Now I'm going to go ahead and spare you of me sewing the rest of these, and I'll meet you at the next step. Here we are at the next step. Now that I have pulled the pins out of all of these, I'm going to go ahead now and split them in half on that drawn line, or from corner to corner. Just split them apart. It's going to look funky, I know, so if you've never done 4 at a time flying geese, it seems unusual, but this is the best way to do it. This was also the best use of fabric, even though we're making extra, instead of just making them 1 at a time. This was better for the pattern to do this. So I'm just splitting them all in half. Doesn't look like much, but we will situate the whole thing. All right, at this point they look like this. So we're going to press them back and make this heart shape. So you're just going to press them back nicely, and we're creating this weird heart shape. So I'm going to go ahead and press these, and I'll meet you back here for the next step. All right, once they are pressed, I'm going to go ahead and re-grab my pins again, and we're going to go ahead, and I'm just going to make all of them, like I said. We marked the back of all of our 5 1/8 inch squares of accent. So now I'm just going to lay one on here. The center is going to come out and the center up here. And I'm going to line this square off right here. And then I'm going to throw 2 pins in there, and that's ready to sew. That's going to give us 2 flying geese units, one on this side and one on this side. Now I'm going to go ahead and just pin all these on here. Like I said, we're making 4 at a time. I'm going to make sure that point is coming out exactly in the center. Then I'm going to pin. That way they're in place, and then I will set them aside at the machine. Oops, making sure my line is in the center. Everything's nice and lined up. I'm just going to pin all these on. So I'm going to spare you me doing this whole entire step for all these pieces, and I'll meet you at the sewing machine when we sew on both sides of our drawn line. So we will be sewing both sides of the drawn line when we get to the machine. So I'm going to go ahead and finish pinning all of these pieces together. All of my pieces are now pinned. I'm going to set the whole stack aside, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew on both sides of that drawn line, same as if we did with the half square triangles, except we're making flying geese units. So I'm going to sew down one side and then up the other. And then I will split them apart and we'll get flying geese units. Now I'm not going to break thread throughout this, so this is just me showing you. I'm going to take each piece now and sew down one side, same as I do with half square triangles. And I am just going to sew all the one side of all of these, and then come back and do the opposite side. That way I don't have to waste any thread by doing them one at a time. I definitely prefer to chain piece as much as I possibly can through projects. Just go one right after the other and then come back and go the other way. So as always throughout today's video, I am just going to spare this step, and I will come back when they are all sewn. Now they are all sewn and I took the pins out, so now all we have to do is split them on this line, and once we press them, we will have 2 flying geese here and then 2 more from the opposite side. That gives us 4 flying geese per 9.5 inch square that we cut. So I'm going to go ahead and trim all these apart and then press them. I'm going to try to keep them in their order. they tend to get out of order, but I'm only going to be pulling 2 from each color anyway once we start making our blocks. So I'm going to go ahead now and spare you this step while I get all this cut and pressed, and I'll meet you right back here and we will start getting the blocks put together. We're not making a whole heck of a lot of blocks, but we are going to get a decent size lap quilt out of this. That should be 48 by 57. Could also be used for a kid. Either way, you'll get a nice little quilt. And remember, the more fabric you add, the bigger your quilt will be. More bigger. I like when I say more bigger, more better, more anything. So just remember that. The more fabric you add, the bigger the quilt. And then the blocks are pretty good and easy to make. And we will get to that in a second. All of these are now pressed, and it's time to trim them to 4 1/2 by 8 1/2. So I'm going to line the half mark here and there, coming across it, and I'm going to trim across the top. Now I'm going to lay my 4 1/2 inch mark here and there. Perfect. So it's coming out at the points right here. I'm going to go ahead now and trim my 8 1/2. So I'm going to line my 45 on my ruler up, line the straight edge up on both sides, trim that, and come over to 8 1/2. And it should land exactly 1/2 right there. And there is my flying geese unit. So I'm going to repeat that until all of them are done, or you can only just trim the ones that are pertinent to this project instead of project number 2, which I don't even know what that's going to be, but I'm going to use it up for something. So I always make sure I have a 1/4 inch at the top first, and then trim the bottom to 4 1/2 inches, and then trim one side by lining everything up, and then trim to 8 1/2. And my ruler gets turned like 50 bazillion times during this process. So I'm going to go ahead and just spare you me trimming all this up, and I am just going to move on to the next step as soon as all this is ready. All of my parts and pieces are done. This pile I'm going to go ahead and set aside for the bonus project that I'll do whenever I get to it. And then this pile is the pile I'm going to use. So now we should have 4 1/2 by 8 1/2 flying geese units. There should be 21. And then you should have 21 4 1/2 by 8 1/2 inch of our rectangles of our orange color, or your main color, which is your geese color. You should have 42 of your 4 patches from your charms, and you should have 42 4 1/2 inch half square triangles. So now we're just going to make the blocks. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is the color that I have on top. So this is the color that I'm going to find somewhere in here. And I'm going to go ahead and grab the 2 of those. I'm going to make this facing you because that way you can see. I'm just going to set that aside. I'm going to make 2 blocks here. So we're going to put our flying geese under that. Our flying geese on the top, and then you're going to put your rectangle underneath it. Then you're going to go find its corresponding color in your half square triangles. Where is it? Hello, it's missing. Oh, there it is, right there. 1, 2. There should be 4 of those. 1, 2. Where's the other 2? When I'm using all the same color, it kind of blends in. So I'm going to go ahead now and place 1 on this side and 1 on this side. That's 1 block parts right here, 1 on this side and 1 on this side, making 1 giant half square triangle, and then, half square flying geese unit, and then we're going to take our 4 patches and we're going to place them in the empty spots. And this is our block. So you're going to be making 21 of these blocks right here. So I'm going to go ahead now and just stack them on top of each other. That way I can just chain sew all of them together. So I'm just going to stack all these right here, and then I'm just going to grab the next. Grab from this pile and then this pile. So put one of these here. Oops. One of these here. And then grab two of these. Find their corresponding half square triangles. This direction and this direction. And I was really hoping that all of these would be going the same direction, but apparently I wasn't paying attention to that part. Oops, we need one more in each. And then some 4 patches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's do that again. We're going to put 2 of these on one side and 2 of these on this side. And now I'm going to chain piece all of these together, then add this one, and then sew the long seam. I'll figure out which pile this goes in, but it should be an equal amount, so I'm not sure which pile is missing one. But, you know, I'm doing this on camera, and I always mess up something. So I'm going to turn these around for myself now to sew them all together. Again, I'm going to sew 2 through like this, and then add these on the ends. And I'm just going to chain piece all of these through, chain piece all of these through. Then while they're hooked together, add this and this. And then separate all of them in sets of 2, because there's only 2, a top and a bottom. And then I will sew the long seam on all of them in a row. This chain piecing method really helps things go a lot faster. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go to the machine. All right, so here I am at the machine. Again, I'm just going to chain piece all these through and then the bottom section through. I'm going to leave them to the side of me and just grab. And that way, all I'll have to do is keep everything attached so nothing gets out of order, and then add the other side. With doing this, I'll figure out which pile has one more than it's supposed to. So I'm going to go ahead, grab this, and sew it through. They should all be 4.5 inches by whatever it's supposed to be. I have my proper 1/4 inch seam. All right, grab the bottom one, sew it through. Then I'm going to grab the next one and its corresponding 4 patch, which doesn't matter because that's mixed up for a reason. And then grab the bottom. And I'm going to do this all the way through, and then I'll come back when I go to attach the other side so that you can see that everything is staying in order of the way I have put them. So again, just sewing them through, chain piecing along as efficient as I possibly can. And then I'll come back and sew the next. All right, I have sewn them all through, so now they're still in order of the way I need them. I'm just going to slide them all into my lap, just like this. There's only 21, so. All right, now I'm going to open it up. I'm going to have this block and then this one. So I'm going to take the top one from my throat space, put it on this side. Open this up, put the bottom one on. Next one, grab a top. Grab a bottom until my whole entire stack is complete. And then I will come back when it is time to sew them together, completing the block. So I probably should have counted when I made my 4 patches. As it turns out, I should have counted them. I was gypped 2 squares in my charm pack. And I even grabbed the trash and it says there are 42. See that? 42 piece. I only got 40. So I'm going to dig through my stash, which takes me a few minutes, but not you. And I'm going to grab some charm squares that are in the similar color range than all this, and then move on. So I went ahead because I was gypped 2 squares. I counted them too. I went back and counted all of it, made sure none of my squares had 2, hooked together like accidentally. That would be so weird to hook that many together. So I just found similar in color range. I'll just put these blocks, wherever mixed in, and it should not be too obvious. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these on now. I can't believe that. Gypped 2. I mean, seriously. So pay attention. Count your squares before you sew them like I did, because I didn't have no backup fabric. I only had the one from that. I only had the one charm pack. All right, and here we have it. I can't believe that. I'm still kind of disappointed. I mean, it was even wrapped of a charm pack. So anyway, here we go. We're at the end. These 2 go together, so I'm going to snip them apart. The next 2 go together. I'm going to snip it apart. The next 2, snip it apart. The next 2, snip it apart. And so on and so forth. And then we will put them together. All right, so I put 2 and I separated them right here. So what we're going to do is the long piece that is open, the 4.5 by 8.5 piece, I'm going to press in towards that. And then the one side that has the flying geese and the 2 charms are going to go outwards towards the charms. And then you're going to put them right sides together and sew that long seam, nesting right here because they're in opposite directions. And you could press all of them at this point if you want to. I tend to just like to sit right here at the machine and do this. So I'm going to leave right there in that seam, leave that needle down, nest this bottom seam, hold it. Nothing else matches up when it comes to nesting seams. And then I'm going to press, I guess, up towards the block. Whatever way it wants to lay, just press it. I think I'm going to press up towards the block on all of them because the next are going to hook together. So I'm going to go ahead and press all these up towards the flying geese. You're looking for a nice straight line on this side and a nice straight line on this side if you've nested your seams correctly. So let me show you that again. Here's the top piece. I'm going to press those. So the flying geese with the 2 charms are going to go on one side. And you could have left your charms whole if you wanted, but I like mine in 4 patches like this. That was my design of the pattern, was in 4 patches. Then this bottom piece is going to get pressed towards your rectangle. And then you're going to put them right sides together. Nest your seam. Hold it. Sew it. Leave that needle down. Nest that bottom seam. And there that is. I'm going to press again towards the top or the flying geese unit. And I'll do that all at the iron. Right now I'm just showing you from right here. So there is your one block. It's a rectangle, not a square. So now the rest of them are hooked together the way I left them. I just wanted you to see. So I literally just do this right here. Where I sit, I just finger press towards this. And I mainly just do right here at the seam, honestly. Everything else I can do at the iron. I'm going to nest that seam, line those pieces up properly, leave that needle down, line up the bottom, and I just dropped it with my fingers. That's okay. Leave that on and move on to the next. So again, sometimes I just get right here where I know that I'm going to be sewing. Again, just right here where I know I'm going to be sewing. And then at the iron, I can press all of it. So I'm going to hook it together and sew. And then I'm going to do all of the blocks this way. And if you need to pin everything, go ahead and do so. And you can just stack them all up, you know, press them right now as it sits at the iron, and then put them all right sides together and pin them at those junctions and just sew them all continuously. I'm done with the pins for the day, so I am just going to do this like this and be done with it. All right, so I will meet you at the next step. And these are the blocks we are working with. So all of my blocks are made. Yep, they are rectangles. We made rectangular blocks. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to lay these out on the design wall in the order of which I have made. I'll give you a picture on the screen in 2 seconds. And then we are going to sew these together. Here on the screen, you are now seeing the layout. So this is how it's going to go. All right, here are my blocks. I'm going to go ahead now and lay them 3 across by 7 down, and the middle is going to be the opposite. Well, I'm pretty sure I have room for this. We're going to do 3 across, except the middle is going upside down. And then we're going to go 7 down. So I'm literally just going to put them however I feel like putting them. Feel free to move them around. If you did all one color, then this shouldn't be too hard to lay out. All right, so there it is. I'm literally going to sew this row together, sew this row together, sew this row together, and then hook these and hook those. That's simple. So I'm just going to stand to do this. So let me look one more time to make sure I like the way it's laying out. I'm going to switch this one for this side. You know me, I got to move things around and make sure I even like it. I'll put this one here instead. And then this one on that side. Let me look again. Okay. 1, 2 on that, 1, 2 on that, and 1 over here. Perfect. I'm going to take 2, put them right sides together, and I'm going to sew with the triangle on top so that I can make sure I'm not losing my point at the top of that flying geese unit. So I'm just going to, they're the same size blocks. I'm going to nest that first seam. I'm going to sew, and then I'm aiming for before the cross section, so I'm above the cross section for my flying geese so that I don't lose my point. I'm going to go ahead and open it up, grab my next one, right sides together, and I'm just going to repeat this until they are all put together. The seams are in opposite directions. My points weren't really cut off on my flying geese anyway. I gave myself a pretty good 1/4 inch seam at the top part of it. All right, open it up, put the next one on, and then when I am done with this row, I'm going to press everything. All right, I'm going to go and press all of these seams up because they're going to want to go that way anyway because there's blankness right here in each block. All right, all the seams are going up, and then this one I'll press all the seams going down. That way they're all facing the emptiness right here at the flying geese, which is less bulk. So I'm just going to take these now, one right after the other. I'm at that point where I know that my seam will be nice. You can flip it over and sew it the other way if you want, but I'm pretty sure, confident-wise, that I'm not going to lose the points on my flying geese. Plus, I can feel for it as well. And I'll open it and look. Yeah, oh yeah, that's perfect. Perfect, perfect. Next. It goes pretty quick once you have your blocks together because these are big blocks, although they are rectangular, but they are pretty big blocks. They're 8.5 by, oh man, I can't think of it now. 16.5. One more, and I haven't lost a single point sewing them this way. I got to thank the Iron Man because he did some pressing for me. Because I'm trying to make this literally in one day. And guess what? So far, I'm succeeding. I think I'm about 3 hours or 3.5 hours of work so far. All right, I'm going to go ahead and press these down or towards the half square triangle above. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put this back in place. Spilled some water out of my iron while I was at it. See that? All right, last row, and then we'll hook the 2 rows together. Yeah, I think we're at 3.5 hours in, which for you is probably not very long because of the editing process. This is such a fun quilt. You can do this in as many colors as you want. You can do it in all scraps. Although in my designs, which you'll see at the end of this video, the different styles, I don't think in any of the styles I did, I can't remember offhand, but I don't think any of them I did just like 2 colors or whatever. You know, they're all either a lot of colors and 4 colors for the 4 patches, or they are completely scraps. And the accent is the same through all of them because that's what makes this what it is. Almost done. Well, at least piecing the blocks. And again, this one's going to get pressed down. Or up, yeah, up towards the empty space. The first row was up, the second row's down, then up, and there's no nesting anything but the block seams once we put the rows together. Because everything is in an opposite direction, an opposite space. So much fun. I love doing stuff like this. This is a great way to use up scraps. I'm going to have a scrap image in the end. It'll be the perfect use of scraps. And remember, the more yardage you add, the more scraps you add, the bigger you can make this. Oh, this is done. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and press this up. All right. So press up towards the flat, press down towards the flat. If the row was flipped, it would pretty much be up. And then this one is pressed up. So I'm going to go ahead and put these 2 together and then add the third. Now we need a chair. I found a chair. All right, right sides together, and there's no nesting of anything except for the block seams. That's it. So in between each piece is a seam, which should lay really nicely. Oh, come on. And notice I'm not using pins, but you can definitely pin this if you must. I'm just going to keep my needle down each time I hit a seam, and everything is in opposite directions, so everything should nest. Even the in-between seams. So the in-between the block seams are in opposite directions as well, because remember we pressed all of them up towards the flying geese. So everything should nest all the way down. Every 4.5 inches is going to nest. Well, technically 4 inches. Every 4 inches, technically. Nesting right up. Look at that. Perfection each time. So again, this is just a little lap quilt. But a lot of you don't like the big patterns. Or at least you like smaller patterns, and it's really hard for me to do the math for all the different sizes. So I figure if I do a couple patterns that are smaller sizes, you can do your math to get the bigger size. Even though I'm not one for making small quilts. But we're doing it. We're doing it. All right, I'm just going to keep this right here, open it up, and add that last row, and then I'm just going to press it to one side. It doesn't matter at this point for the row, so you can press it whichever direction you want. Okay, add this, and then my wonderful top will be done. I'm not going to add any borders because I don't have any border fabric for it. I could choose some. You could choose some if you want to make it just a little bit bigger. That is all up to you. I didn't have any extra fabric, so if you add another 3/4 of a yard of your accent color, you could make that your first border, and then maybe choose one of the colors that you did in your fat quarters like I did, or use your, I would say that's too much of that, or maybe one of the colors that's in your charm pack for a second border, and you would need a yard of that if you're going to do 5 inches. 3/4 of a yard for your first border. If you want to do like, no, you don't even need that. If you want to do 2.5 inch border, you can use like 12, 13, 14, like half a yard. Yep, so if you add just another half a yard to the yardage, so 2 yards of an accent, I think that might even get you 3 inches of a first border, which is fine. I always like my first border to be 2.5 inches on smaller quilts. So that one's completely up to you though. Have fun, make it your own. I wouldn't mind if you guys make this. If you want to post it in the Facebook group, I will see it. The link to the Facebook group is in the description below. Please answer the questions to join. We get lots of bots trying to join that, or fake accounts. So we definitely would like if you answered the questions. And also you can share it on Instagram and tag the hashtag Tiffany's Quilting Life, and I will see that as well. Almost done. All right, coming up to the bottom. Almost there. Last of it right now. Now I'm going to go ahead and press this, and we'll hang it up and see what it looks like. Ta-da. So this is what I'm calling charmed geese. Get it? Charms, geese. charms geese. So it's charmed geese. Like I said, if you don't want to do all the piecing of the 4 patches, bypass that and just cut your charm squares down to 4.5 inches and insert those in. And you can put, like I said, you can do scraps. So you can have this one scrap piece if you want. I like it with the 4 patch. I think it gives it a little bit more interest, moves that color around. But look at that. I also love that I used the 11 different color fat quarters. That just kind of gave it even better of a look. I'm gonna have to make this again though, and just use that same color that I wanted to use initially. I wanted the same color in all of these, especially since here's my little drawing of it, because I drew it out first. I like to use graph paper and draw things out, and then you guys obviously get a pattern. PDF will be in the Facebook group, and then I obviously insert everything on the screen, which you saw. But yeah, I drew it out in one color for this and one color for this. And then I also drew it out where it's just 4 colors for each 4 patch, was 4 colors for each 4 patch. So I like it like this, where the 4 patches messed up and scattered through, so it blends that color through nicely. It looks really awesome. I love it. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you make this, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.